Let me thank the IG for finding me worthy, and also the police leadership, to come in this morning to give the keynote address. The theme, enhancing Nigerian youth value for national security. This event is coming at a very sensitive period. And why do I say that? We've just had a riot that in some places resulted in violence and mayhem. Lives were lost. Not only that, individuals suffered economic losses. And that transits also to the fact that the nation suffered losses. So it calls for a time for sober reflection in terms of the affairs of this nation. I will share a very personal story about engagement, because when I look at what the police, what they have done inviting us to this event, I would say the IG is very bold. The police leadership, they are very bold to be doing this at this time. Why? They are in the eyes of the storm, and people are raising issues with them. But what is the significance of this in organizing this? What the IG and the leadership of the police, what they are saying is, we know we are not perfect. We understand best practices. We want to have a conversation with everybody so that we can continue to do it better. And I'm glad the two individuals who came forward a few moments ago, they said it that in quite a number of areas during this last riot, the police were exemplary in the way they carried out their activities. We had challenges in some other places. They are not denying it, but they are saying, we want to have this conversation so that we can do it better. What is that story that I want to share? When I was appointed Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University, I inherited a university that was deeply fractured. And some people christened the university one weak, one trouble. I do recall then that the IG then, he called me, Dr. Egwetokun, he called me, and he told me two things that resonated with me all through my tenure. He said, Larry, don't allow them to hijack the youth, the students' population from you. If they hijack them, there will be issues. The second one he told me, leverage on intelligence. Today, I am giving you the same advice. Don't allow the Nigerian youth to be hijacked. Leverage on intelligence. Those were the capsules you gave me, and they worked. They are your capsules. One of the things we have to recognize, when that protest was brewing and when it eventually happened, there were two forces in play. There were those with genuine grievances who wanted the nation to listen to them. And there were those who had mischievous purposes who wanted to use it for some other agenda. And that is why this kind of conversation is very important, such that from time to time, I tell people then that I usually have breakfast meeting with all the students. Why? I tell them, even if we have nothing to discuss, we'll talk about Chelsea and Arsenal. At the end of the day, conversations like this with the Nigerian youth is what will not allow the Nigerian youth to be hijacked from managing and working with government to run this great nation. I'm not going to go into why we are having this event, the Youth Day, because when the IG was speaking, he talked about it. Also when my dear brother, Mr. Ladi-Bolu was talking, Prince Ladi-Bolu was talking, he also emphasized the importance of the Youth Day. So I will not go into that. But what is critical is to say that the population of young people is growing. We have about 8.2 billion people globally. Out of the 8.2 billion people, about 1.8 constitute the youth. When you look at it at the global level, you begin to think, well, there's so much of adults and not many of youths. But when you come down to Africa and come down to Nigeria, you see a different ball game entirely. And what do I mean by that? The United Nations defined youth as between ages 15 and 24. USAID defines it as between ages 10 and 19. 10 and 29. African Youth Charter defines it as between ages 18 to 29. Then, Nigeria's youth policy defines it as between ages 18 to 29. When you look at the population of Africa, you see that it's about 1.5. Out of that 1.5, 1.1 constitute the youth when you use these figures. When you come down to Nigeria, you see that the population of Nigeria is around 229 million by UN estimates. Out of that, if we use the calculation of 60% constituting the youth, you will find that over 137 million out of 222 constitute the youth population. If you decide to use the 70% calculation, that 70% constitute the youth, you will see that over 160 million constitute the youth out of 220-something million. That shows you the strength that we have in the youth population. And that is why what I have done is to term my own paper. I said, Nigeria's untapped talent pool. Nigeria's untapped talent pool. Building a meaningful national security partnership with the Nigerian youth. We need to build a meaningful security partnership with Nigerian youth if we want to benefit from them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what are the paradigm shifts that we have when we talk about national security? Hitherto, our security agencies, they were confronted with visible threats. And what are those visible threats? The threats that you can see in terms of crimes committed on a daily basis. You talk about rape, you talk about assault, you talk about people being attacked that you can see. But the dimension of it has changed. Today, when we talk about security threats, you are looking at hacking, misinformation, espionage, digital warfare, cybersecurity issues, AI-driven threats. These are things that you cannot easily come to terms with because you cannot see them, and they are happening, and we must be able to meet them. The recent challenges that they had in the UK, it was premised on misinformation. Even the riots that we had in Nigeria, if you go back to the kind of things that we saw on the social media, you will see so much of misinformation, so much of negative narratives that were being driven by mischievous people to achieve. So we are not saying that we do not have challenges, but we are saying we can come together to manage these challenges without us allowing our nation to go into dislocation. What are the things that are the challenges for the youths? What are the things that are driving the youth in terms of the agitation that we continue to see? 7 things I will just run through that I've identified as driving our youth in terms of the agitation that I have seen over time. When you go back to NSAS and you come back to the recent one, you will see that 7 things are critically there. The first one, economic challenges is cross-cutting. And I'm glad that the point was made here earlier in the day. Economic challenges, it is cross-cutting for everybody. There's a trust gap in terms of security agencies and the youth. And we have seen a situation where, over time, the security agencies are also trying to improve on what is on ground. A third one, leaders must stop the affluence that they flaunt. Because at the end of the day, these are the kind of things that brings out the kind of spirit that people feel. We are struggling. You are living in affluence. Why should this be? Identify with us in terms of the challenges. A fourth one, we must recognize that traditional African society, we have this nature of feeling that the older generation, they feel that what is it that the younger generation can give? But the dynamics have changed. If we look at the issues that I mentioned earlier, in terms of cyber threats, AI threats, and the rest of them, who is best positioned to manage them? It's the youth. Many of us adults, if you look at our phone, you don't use your phone 5–10%. But when you look at the younger generation, as young as age 10, 11, 12, 13, they use their phone 70%. In fact, their phone is more like an office for them, for the younger generation. And that is the huge difference in the way they do these things. Another challenge, failure of the justice system. We are having serious challenges with the justice system because cases are delayed. When cases are delayed and people don't see consequences for those who commit crimes, is a challenge. When youth are taken to the justice system, there is a particular way that younger people should be treated. Because of delays in the system, they are not so treated. So you see quite a number of things happening within the justice system. And that is why huge kudos should go to Mr. President in the support that Mr. President is beginning to give to the judiciary. It happened in Lagos. It is now happening at the federal level. We are going to be having a new Chief Justice of Nigeria very soon. All of these things will work together. And you see a situation where I will say that, yes, Mr. President has supported the judiciary. The judiciary also must use their own network to monitor themselves and reflect accountability. When they do that, when people commit offenses and they see the consequences early enough, it will deepen the confidence of those who are acting right. It is when people are not facing the consequences of their act that everybody feels, well, there is no big issue in committing a crime. But when people see that those who commit crimes are being disciplined and they follow the rule of law in doing this, because it is important, you will see that everybody will begin to embrace the rule of law. Right now, the rule of law, people will say, it depends on the money you have in your pocket that will determine how rule of law is interpreted. By the time people begin to see consequences of their acts, it will no longer be a case of what you think you can do with your money. It will be a case of what is contained in the laws. It will not be a case of one law for the rich and one law for the poor. It will be a case of the law's eyes are actually blind. When you commit an offense, you get the consequences of your acts. Another one that has happened that I see as another driving force is the fact that our traditional institutions, we are not utilizing them the way we should. When we talk about community policing, the traditional institutions can come in to help a lot. And within these traditional systems, you have age groups within different systems. Within the age groups, you will see the youth are able to play their roles. This is the system that we know. If all of us go back to our villages today, the traditional systems are still there. The traditional systems are not dead. If I give you a joke now, it will appear as a joke, but it is the truth. If somebody goes into court, you give him the Bible, he will not look at it, he will pick it and say, the evidence I shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God, and he will put it down. Give him the Quran, the evidence I shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and he will put the Quran down. Let him swear by the deity of his community. He will not. He will not. Because whether it is true or false, spiritually within him, he fears the deity of his community. Let him live in the UK for years. It does not matter. When he comes back, he respects that deity. So we should not throw away our traditional institutions. We must find a way for them because they can effectively leverage on the youth within this community in developing our great nation. Another one is sincerity of engagement, the quality of engagement. Honorable Minister for Youth and Development, I went to your website, man. When you look at the antecedent of the Honorable Minister, in terms of what you did when you were leading the Women Forum, in terms of what you did when you are leading SDG, you have leveraged over time on engagement. So you find out that we have success stories of engagement that all of us in our little corners, tiny little areas have been doing. Why can't we bring these successes together at the national level of engaging with our youth? When I got to that website, I saw that there are laudable programs, there are laudable initiatives. But I asked myself 5 questions. I said, how inclusive of youth leaders are this program and the initiatives, both in developing them and the structure of strategies for implementation? If you did not factor the youth into these documents at the starting point, achieving success with them will be difficult. A second question, how are the deliverables being monitored for outcomes and compliance with timelines and quality? What is the level of interface with state government and local government for effective replication, bearing in mind that we are running a federal system? What roles are other relevant and related ministries and institutions playing in delivering the goals of these initiatives? Finally, how well are we gathering data to guide performance review and new initiatives? One of the major problems of our great country relates to data. Data is scattered everywhere. Our youth, when effectively engaged, can support the nation in gathering data that will be used effectively to guide our policies, advocacies, and other activities. And I said, most times, a number of brilliant initiatives die on the table of implementation. They are brilliant. Everybody wants to do them. But because we are not implementing them rightly, it is either they are hijacked or we are not able to utilize them. But when we bring in the youth with the social media, the way they will put in the event, this is the advantage of intergenerational systems. This is what intergenerational systems gives. When you leverage, the older generation will be leveraging on the youth. The youth also will be benefiting from the wisdom of the older generation. And I went on to say, there's a need for a new coalition for security intelligence. When I look at the distinguished array of people that the leadership of the police have been able to bring here today, it gave me great joy. Why? Most times we organize events like this. The critical stakeholders that should go away with the resolutions are not present when these discussions are going on. But today, we have the leaders of different critical stakeholders here present, including the youth. We are not babbing them in their absence. What do we all want to key into? We want to key into the mantra of quality engagement. We all want to key into the mantra. The success we had at LASU was simply a case of everybody, VC, management, everybody, security unit, admin officer, everybody keyed into engagement, sincere engagement. Because when you don't engage sincerely, what do you see? It is like trying to wake a man who is pretending to sleep. If a man is pretending to sleep, you can never wake him up. Because the more you wake him, the more he'll be snoring. Because he's pretending. So when you don't engage with people sincerely, at the end of the day, even when you mouth it, the mantra, we are engaging, we are talking to them, it will not achieve the goals. And they also will see that they are not being properly engaged. And I ask myself, when you look at the national youth policy, our national youth policy is one of the most robust. Why is it not working? It is not because people are wicked. It is not because people don't want to do. It is simply because we have not embraced the culture of sincere engagement. We have not understood engagement in the context of when you sleep, when you wake, when you relate, it has to be a discussion. All of us today, we know how we engage with our children. When I got to LASU, some people told me, they said, Mr. Vice Chancellor, the way you engage with these students, you are demystifying the office of the Vice Chancellor. I said, when I leave, let another person mystify it. Because this university that they said is one day, one crisis, for the 5 years of that tenure, not one day of crisis. The university became number 2 after University of Ibadan by Times Higher Education ranking. Times Higher Education is based in the UK, so we could not have influenced them. So what that means is, and it is not, you see, we make one mistake. We talk about it and say, Mr. President and Mr. Governor. It is not only about Mr. President or Mr. Governor. It is about all of us in our own little corner. When you run the light, you are creating a problem. So all of us, we need to understand that the mantra, the name of the game must change. Our youth, we must engage with them, and they also must be ready to engage with the system. That is when we will achieve the goals. And when I talk about the new coalition, what is it that the youth can offer national security intelligence? I know by the time we're through with it, a whole lot of ideas will also come from the conversation. But I just identify some quick things. When our youth are equipped with skills, they can support mediation and resolution of conflicts in our communities. We have communities where they are talking about resource conflicts. We have communities where they are looking at issues relating to ethnic and religious conflict, land matters. When we equip our youth with these skills, they will be able to work within their communities. And the truth of the matter is, some other countries are already using it. Rwanda is using it. Colombia is using it. We can also effectively use it. A second one, when we are formulating our national security policies, let us also be able to leverage on the insights of the youth. This is happening in India. We must be able to leverage the energy and the strength and the knowledge of our youth in the area of social media for national security. They are very techy. They are very savvy. And all it means, when you look at Lagos today, you find out that there is so much of tech development. Do we have a situation where we encourage our youth, whereby if you develop an app that is effective, the system will take it off with you. The system will work with you and develop it with you. So that we don't go out and just be importing everything. Let us leverage on them and utilize their own efforts. When people say that our students, they are not doing well, our students, education is poor, I tell them that you don't know these students. Let our students go outside Nigeria. They always distinguish themselves. Why? There is resilience in their DNA. There is a can-do attitude in the DNA of Nigerian students. It is there in their DNA. So you find out that, assuming they have the exposure and opportunity of the kind of education that they have over there, they will be world beaters. We must recognize that Nigerian youths are assets to the nation. If we utilize them well, they will deliver. If we fail to utilize them, they will be hijacked and misused against our great country. We can leverage on sports. We can leverage on the arts. These are different areas. Through the sports, we give messages about national security. Through the arts, we give messages about national security. It is already happening in other countries. Brazil, the Peace Games, that Brazil organizes, it is premised on it. The youth, they will be a powerful tool to foster a culture of security consciousness, patriotism, responsibility, and integrity. I was giving a lecture at Harvard, and when I finished my lecture, somebody asked me that all through the conversation, you did not talk about corruption in Africa. And I said, yes, I did not talk about corruption, because those who are alleging corruption, they bring these monies into your country from Africa, and you take it. It takes two to tangle. So corruption is not, we did not evolve the word, that word is yours. So at the end of the day, if we are thieves, then it means a thief is alleging that we are also thieves. Two thieves that is the truth. So at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that corruption is all over. So what we need to do is, let us bring in mechanisms for detection of what is happening in our country. And our youth can play a major role, because there are so many apps that can be developed such that they'll be working within the system, and whatever malpractices that is going on will be revealed. A whole lot can happen in this space. Honorable Minister, sir, I don't envy you. You have a major work. We have so much. But Mr. President saw that capacity, looking at your antecedent, and we know you will deliver. Working together with others in the system. Our ministries should stop working in silos. You are not competitors. You are collaborators. Let us see them work together as collaborators. That is what this kind of event is saying. When I first got to LASU, after about 1-2 weeks, everybody was saying, Mr. Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Because whether to the security or to the cleaner, it is thank you, sir. Thank you, ma. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma. By the time I was living in 5 years, everybody was Mr. Thank you. Because we all respected ourselves. It became a mutual thing. And that is what this great nation needs. Tornado is not in Nigeria. Other terrible storms, they are not in Nigeria. God has blessed us. We now need to use the capacity and those endowments that God has given us to make sure that we energize ourselves. I was talking to my postgraduate students in class, and I told them, anywhere I go, it is only when it is winter that I will not be dressed like this. Anywhere in the world, I will be dressed like this, because I want to tell them I am proudly African and proudly Nigerian. And that is what our youth should carry forward. We have so much pride in us. We have so much. Nigerian police, thank you for this event. Let everybody key into that mantra. Let everybody support the vision of Mr. President. We all knew where we are coming from. We all knew where we are coming from. And nobody is saying it is perfect. But we can do better when we work together and we collaborate. I also say we can use the youth involvement to denounce misinformation, because all of the things that is happening, by the time the youth key into the agenda, when you circulate something that is not right, they will immediately correct it and it goes viral. Let's see who will do it better. You are a bunch of mischief makers. We have the large generation of Nigerian youth working with the system. And that is what we need. But when we alienate the youth and we don't let them see that we are not doing you a favor by allowing you into this space, you are legitimately entitled to be in this space with us, they will key into the agenda. We can identify the leaders. And it is not about Mr. President coming to engage with them. No. All we need is the policies, the rules, the laws are there. Everybody in their small corner engage. And that is what will make that difference. I went on to close on the basis of, we must recognize, that is, what are the imperatives on security agencies? I'm sorry I'm brushing so that I can close this. What are the imperatives on security agencies and other government agencies? We must recognize the challenges on ground, and we must be intentional in addressing these challenges. We should not address it as business as usual. We must be intentional in addressing it, and every leader within the system must be determined about it. We must actively encourage youth participation in policy and advocacy that supports crime prevention through youth-friendly policies that integrate the role of youth in national security strategies. The role of economic empowerment through employment and entrepreneurship is critical. Education remains a pillar and foundational element in building a security-conscious and responsible youth population. All of us, we know what happened in Abuja during this last riot. We know what happened in Kano. We know what happened in Kaduna. And all of us were making references to the Almajiri issues. How effectively have we deepened our interventions? In Sokoto, they adopted an Indonesian model some time back. What is that Indonesian model? It's a situation where they integrated Islamic education with secular education, and then compulsory vocational practice. What does that mean? Every youth will be given a skill, one skill or the other, that he will master, such that at the end of the day, you can become an entrepreneur and you can successfully feed yourself. When last did we do an audit of that Indonesian model in Sokoto State? Other northern states that are similarly circumstanced, have they embraced similar models? What we have is a situation where when the issues are on the table, everybody is just looking at what is there at that moment. We are not asking ourselves, what have we been doing over time? You know, there's this song then, what have you done for me lately? Oh, 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 oh. That is not it. It is not about what you have done for me lately. It's about, let us ensure that we are consistent in what we are building. That model can effectively work for the Almajiri setting and the challenges we are having in that area. That is the Indonesian model. There's a need for sustainable mental health support and counseling systems for our vulnerable youth, because untreated mental health has a major role it plays in criminal activities. To leverage technology and innovation, government must encourage the private sector to support youth-led innovations in security technologies. There are mobile apps that can be developed anywhere by these youth. And let us, when they develop the mobile app, don't let us leave them to be struggling. I love what the Minister for Technology, Bosun, what he's doing now. Those are the kind of initiatives we need to aggressively deepen it, and it will work for us as a nation. Reward systems, and I believe from this kind of setting, we can take it further. What award systems do we have for Nigerian youth who are contributing to national security? IG, sir, if you have a system working together with others, we can have competitions where Nigerian youths that are able to develop apps that will support the work of our security agencies, where they will have awards, where they will have sponsorships, where they will be taken into the system as interns. A whole lot can happen. Internship and mentorship programs, grant programs, a whole lot. I'm a member of TED Fund Research Committee, and we see people coming forward with research in terms of developing apps that can support national security. Some people will say, you are copying what they have done in other climes. Who says it cannot be copied? So far, I'm not stealing your own. And I'm copying my own, I'm modeling myself after the kind of thing you have done, using my own senses. Who says I cannot do it? And then we have our intellectual property systems, supporting them so that they are not violating rules, but they are developing things that are indigenous to us because they are part of the system. That is when those things break down. we will not have to go and look for somebody to come and repair. We will simply call on them, and then you see them. Let us use our money. Rather than using it to develop people or bring people from there, let us use our own money, our funds, to develop our people. They will make mistakes, but they will get better. They will make mistakes at the early stages, but they will get better. Some of these initiatives that I'm talking about, they already exist. But the problem is, because we don't use monitoring and evaluation to know where we are, what are the challenges facing them, what can we do to improve, some of them, they collapse along the line. So that is why evaluation and monitoring is critical for every initiative that we throw up. Mindset of leaders and government functionaries must change. The name of the game must change. Build awareness and educate people. Establish regular forum for young people, security experts, and government officials for them to commingle ideas. When we sit at such events, at events like this, I can tell you so much will come out of it. Particularly when people sit and they know that you have a kind of timeline of actions as to what's next. People will key into it. What are my conclusions? We must begin to see our youth as global citizens with a role to play in the security of not just the nation, but the world, and nurture them as such. What happened in Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda, Sri Lanka, among others, are clear indication that the youth cannot be suppressed for too long. Every stakeholder in this room must live with a resolve to actively work and support the vision of the administration to give leverage to Nigerian youth. Everyone is a clarion call. We don't have a choice. If you alienate yourself from your children, you're on your own. All of us as parents, when you argue and you say because you have arguments with your son or your daughter, and you say you don't want to engage with that child again, you're on your own because he will move on. He will move on. And many of us, we have tasted that pill. You will even now be using style to beg. Akin, Chinedu, Ngozi, Mohammed, I've not heard your voice for 3 days. Are you not going to call me? Because you alienated yourself. We must not, as a nation, alienate ourselves from our great youth. By 2050, Nigeria, according to the United Nations, is projected to be the third most populous country in the world, with majority of its population being youth. Effective engagement with them today will go a long way in shaping the country's future. Some will tell you, you are putting all of this forward for leaders to do. How about the youth? Don't worry. When you create a platform for engagement, I finish before you say me, I don't come out. When you create a platform for engagement, they will engage. The communique of this summit, IG sir, the communique of this summit must be clear on specific next steps and timelines that will enable us to benchmark ourselves on where we are and what next. The youth must be fully involved in this process too. You said something earlier. You said we are going to be having this regularly. And the highly cerebral PRO also said it, that this is the first and we'll have more. I dare say, sir, if we don't timeline what we want to do, if we don't see how we can interface, we will come back for the next one and we'll be starting from where we are ending today. Thank you very much, and God bless you, sir. Is those structures that should continue to function, they should function. And you see that the kind of attitude that you saw in several areas with the police, which was what I said there, that attitude was they were very calm, they were very matured in the way they were dealing with the protesters. It was when it degenerated in some areas that you saw the kind of engagement that you see. The police also recognized that there are challenges. we have challenges in Nigeria. Every other nation have their own challenges. So at the end of the day, we cannot ask for a total breakdown that the police should support, the military should support, everybody. When everybody comes onto the street, who manages the nation? So that is why the structures must continue to function. But you will see that everybody at that time was also emphasizing, allow the protest, those who are genuinely involved in protest, allow them to have the protest. But those who want to hijack, those are the people that people were being cautious about. And that was what resulted in losses. So and again, the point was made about riot and protest. I agree with you that those who are doing, and I recognize that in my speech, that there are people who are out there genuinely to protest the challenges that they were facing, that the nation is facing. So they were out there, but some others were out to precipitate riot and crisis.
Thank you, sir.
So I recognize and I accept that.
Thank you,
sir. And then the final one on cultism. Okay, the final one on cultism. Another member there has answered, another member of the audience answered that question. When the youth are also involved in tracking it, it makes it a lot easier for us to because they know those who are doing it. But what happens is, when that mantra of, when you see something, say something, when it becomes meaningless, because you see, and then you now become the victim, that is when people don't say. But when that mantra, you see something, say something, becomes meaningful, in that those who are caught are dealt with, you will see that there will be changes.
Thank you so much, Prof.